Welcome back to another episode of VHS Files presents the horror section. This podcast contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised. Now your hosts, Josh and Jason. Enjoy the horror. Ahoy, mateys. How are you doing tonight?
Ahoy to you, sir. Chips ahoy to everyone. Milk and cookies.
We're back with another horror section for everyone, and we have Mr. Eric back in the seat.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here, especially talking about some John Carpenter.
One of our favorite topics, John Carpenter.
Indeed.
I like carpentry. I mean, it's fun making stuff out of wood.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we're talking about John Carpenter. Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah,
we were
not
building,
that Carpenter.
I thought we were building a deck.
We're not talking about
No.
Jesus.
I'm done building things, guys. And since we're talking John Carpenter, I'll go ahead and throw a shameless plug out there. I was just on the Not a Bomb podcast, and we talked about Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which was a box office bomb, which fits their show perfectly. And I had not seen that since I was a kid, so it was fun to go back and revisit that. And if you want to hear my opinion about it, you can go listen to Not a Bomb podcast and check out Troy and Brad's podcast. Those guys are awesome.
I'm excited to listen to that, except I'm ashamed to admit I have not seen that movie.
Brad had not seen it until he had to watch it for the podcast, so it was a very good conversation. I had seen it as a kid; he had never seen it, and Troy loves it. So there was a little bit of a debate about this movie on there. It was a pretty good conversation. I'll just leave it at that.
I need to dig up that movie and watch it, and then listen to that episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'll agree with Troy. I loved that movie as a kid. I've seen it tons of times. I used to love the part where he eats and you can actually see all the food in his guts and he pukes it up.
Yeah, thanks for spoiling that for Eric.
God damn it! There's no point in watching it now.
Yeah, that's the whole movie. That's it. That's all you needed. You're good. But no, it's a great movie. But yeah, and we just did the thing a couple episodes ago. We're really on a Carpenter roll here.
Right. Well, I mean, Eric just happened to say, I haven't seen The Fog in a while, so we need to talk about The Fog. And I was like, well, fuck it. Let's do a horror section and talk about The Fog.
Fog it.
So that's what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
Fog it.
Oh, wait, we're not doing the 2005 Tom Welling Superman? Oh, shit. I watched the wrong movie. No, I'm just
Well, then you're just going to have to sit back and listen to me and Eric talk. So John Carpenter's The Fog came out February 1st, 1980. And with a budget of $1.1 million, pulled a box office of 21.3. So there goes John Carpenter again, making a dime go to 100. So he had a small budget and did some pretty good numbers with this. This was his next film after Halloween. And we all know he goes on to do a lot more after this. So I'm not really going to get into that because eventually we will talk about those movies on this show. But The Fog was released amongst the likes of Cannibal Holocaust, Inferno, Death Ship, The Ninth Configuration, Eaten Alive, and just months before Friday the 13th and The Shining. I think this was February, and those movies hit around March of 1980.
I thought the first Friday the 13th movie came out in May.
March, they all start with the same letters, so I'm just putting them in the same category. This was not a movie I saw as a kid, to be completely honest with you. How about you guys? Had you guys seen this as a kid, or is this something that you guys watched later on?
No, I did not see this as a kid. This was me playing catch up once I realized I love John Carpenter. And I had to just start digging through everything. And I really liked this the first time I saw it. And I think every time I watch it, I like it more, which we'll get into here. But go ahead, Jason. What about you?
Me, I was not a rental. I don't think my mom was too big on it, so it wasn't something like that. But I remember distinctly seeing it on TV as like a teenager come on late at night, especially around Halloween, the whole month where they would always play scary movies off and on. Because they'd always, you always had Halloween and stuff like that on. So they were like playing like a Carpenter marathon. They would just play different Carpenter movies throughout the whole day, Christine and of course this. But I will have to say, as far as in my Carpenter catalog, it is down on the list. So me and Eric are going to have fun talking about this.
Well, Jason, I tell you what, It was lower on my list, and every time I watch it, I think it takes a little step. It might take a little step up. I mean, it's nowhere near the top, but yeah, it's growing on me with every watch.
Might want to get a shot for that.
Yeah.
Maybe might need some penicillin.
Get it looked
Well, this
at.
was, I think I may have briefly touched on this in one of our episodes, but there was a big bundle of videotapes that my parents got from some unfortunate circumstance of someone getting kicked out of a house or something like that. And we got all these videotapes out of them not being able to take them with them. And I don't know what all the circumstances were, but those videotapes had a whole bunch of dubbed movies on them. And a lot of the old horror movies I saw around that time were due to those tapes that ended up in our house. And The Fog was on one of those tapes. And I remember putting it on and kind of not really being too into it at the time because it does move fairly slow. And it doesn't, I'll go ahead and start the conversation a little bit. It doesn't have the same sort of flow as like a Halloween does or something like that. So it didn't grab me right away.
Mm-hmm.
It is a slower burn for sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer and we'll talk about, what we see in that. And then we'll get our conversation about the movie started.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years
She's so
old
hot.
today, and people want John for that.
Apparently John Carpenter thought so too.
Oh, yeah.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
I have to say, I like this trailer.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
That's a cool scene.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has
Although it does repeat itself quite a bit.
The Fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed.
I love the glowing fog and the visual of
Yes.
that.
Okay, so what time did he say? I don't think I got it on the 10th time he said between 12 and 1 a.m.
Between 12 and 1 a.m.
Where's the fog?
It's very
That is the time
specific.
for the dead.
Right outside my door now.
All right. So The Fog.
The Fog. Before we even get to the movie, I just want to mention the Embassy Pictures logo. Can we just play that real quick? It's not going to be great for audio, but
For Eric, who is works in a visual medium.
it
It
mean,
just screams 80s, man.
oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, that little intro is so rad. I'm going to put it on our Twitter. I love it. That's all I have to say about that. It's just awesome.
It's funny how things like just the production company stuff. Like I remember a big part of my love for movies is like the TriStar logo that comes out with the unicorn flying away, and then like the old Columbia Pictures logo and all of that stuff. Like I remember having a very fond memory of when you would see those, you were like, "Ooh, I'm gonna watch this cool movie now."
Yeah,
Like,
particularly when they've some of these production companies have gone out of business, or they've like Universal has updated their look and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you get that you get that little intro, and you forget about that stuff when you watch an old movie. You're not even thinking of that stuff. Certainly I wasn't thinking of Embassy Pictures when I started watching this, but it plays, and it kind of brings you back and kind of gets you ready for what you're about to watch.
even like horror movies and action movies, like the Carol Co. Ones that would always play at the beginning of like Rambo movies.
Yeah.
And then the Canon logo and all that stuff, like those.
Yeah, and what's funny, sometimes you'd hit the logo and they would have that little bit of a sound bite behind it, and you knew what movie it was before you even got to it. Because sometimes I try to do that. It's like you see the intro coming on, and you're like, "What movie is this?" Like you see that Geffen logo roll out, you're like, "Beetlejuice." That's
Yeah.
the first thing I think every time I see a Geffen movie type thing roll. I'm like, is this going to be?
Well,
It's weird
20th Century Fox was always the one that got me, because if at the time, if you were watching cable and you didn't know what movie was coming on, if you saw the 20th Century Fox logo and it had the music playing behind it, you're like, there's like a 1 in 100 chance that this is Star Wars coming on right now, and I'm about to lose my mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but most of the time it wasn't Star Wars, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately.
So, okay, John Carpenter's The Fog. Right after Halloween, we start off with this campfire story about how this town of Antonio Bay, over 100 years ago, a bunch of crazy stuff happened with some pirates and gold and all of that stuff. I like the way it opens on this campfire scene, and kind of sets the mood for where we're going.
Well,
with this.
you know, one thing about this movie is there are a good handful of stories being told. This is a very much, you know, a storytelling movie, and there's multiple scenes where a character is basically telling like a ghost story or telling, you know, a creepy story, and it's only fitting that you start at a campfire. And this guy's story is awesome. The idea that the sunken ship, the ghosts, are looking for the light. They're looking for land. So they're looking for that campfire that caused their thing. What a perfect way to freak out a bunch of kids. I love his description of the bodies under the water, lungs filled with salt water, eyes peering into the darkness, eyes open, whatever. I can't remember the exact wording. I'm butchering it, I'm sure, but it's great. And if you can, I'll agree with you, Jason. This movie is slower, and on my first viewing, I felt that. But the more I watch it, the more I enjoy these little monologues the characters get, these little stories, and they're effective. They're creepy. I mean, this is a ghost movie. This is a spooky.
That's one thing I wanted to bring up, coming off of Halloween being a big time slasher movie. And then he goes to do this, which got him in some trouble with his production companies and the deals that he made when he made deals with Halloween. But he wanted to make this movie, and he didn't want to do another slasher. He wanted to do this ghost story.
Yeah. This scene that Eric loves was added after he made the movie. He felt this when Carpenter finished the movie. He said he didn't feel like it was scary enough. He was actually like let down by it. So he went back. He shot this campfire scene with that old man. I forgot.
I didn't get his name,
but I remember him as being the grandpa on the show Silver Spoons.
That's awesome. I did not pick up on that. I used to watch Silver Spoons, but
I know he's the grandpa. Because remember they were the rich family, and then grandpa comes to visit. But I mean, it's the cool thing. But I mean, there are a lot of the scary aspects that pop up to this movie, which there are like hardly any, and he added to it, and I'm like, what was this movie before? Because they said originally the movie was only 80 minutes, and then he added all these scenes.
He added the guys on the boat as well, right?
Yeah, I think so. There was a few things he added.
You know, the dudes out drinking on the. I think he added some stuff there.
But the one thing I want to point out, because I'm a fan, is the cool Edgar Allan Poe thing at the beginning. I mean, I love Poe. My dog's name is Poe because Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice.
But I love that is all that we see or seen but a dream within a dream. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool line.
Sounds like Inception to me.
Oh, there you go. Maybe this is where Nolan started, just from this right here.
I do very much enjoy that you get this campfire tale and it's really just an old man trying to spook these kids, but then you get affirmation that, wait a minute, there could be some truth to this, because we cut to Father, who's played by Hal Holbrook, and all of a sudden things in this town just start going haywire.
Right at the time that the story says they will. Even though the story isn't the same exactly, but it's close.
Well, that's what I had a little bit of trouble grasping on, is they do a lot of repetition of between the hours of 12 and 1. And as the movie started, I was watching it with Jenny, and I was like, is this movie supposed to take place within the span of an hour? Because this movie's over an hour long, and that makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, but it's the next day, every day, coming up to the 100-year mark between 12 and 1.
Right.
They get started a little early, but I guess it hits at that time when they really hit town, when the fog hits town.
But what's cool, when we meet Father Malone, we see our director in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
As in, his name is Ben or Bennett, and it's like, hey,
Yeah,
look,
Bennett.
there's John Carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not much of an actor, I have to say.
Yeah,
the very little dialogue he has, I was like, ooh, that's kind of cringy.
Yeah. I read that he was not happy with that performance either, with his own performance, but
That might explain why he never comes back. I thought it would be cool if he popped back up in the movie later and like got killed by one of the ghosts or something.
yeah, it
That
would
would
be
have been
fun
cool.
if if he was, walking with his car and got taken out or something like that. But
I mean, I liked Carpenter and his little, anthology thing? Body bags.
yeah.
Where he's the,
Yeah.
well, he's going nuts in body bags. He's being
Yeah,
a
he
total
gets to
like
be him.
ham on that, but yeah.
he kind of gets to be himself, probably.
That was quite a few years later.
Yeah.
So maybe he was able to work up some chops.
After working with Jamie Lee and Janet Leigh and all these people, and Tom Atkins, he took all that in.
And that is a cool thing, yeah, that we have Jamie Lee and Janet Leigh in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mom and daughter working together in the same movie. This is going to be the first time Tom Atkins makes an appearance in a John Carpenter production. I don't know if he's ever been in one of John Carpenter's directorial movies, but he definitely has been in part of John Carpenter's productions, namely Halloween 3.
Yep.
I want to ask you guys, and this is a pretty common thread throughout the horror, everyone who loves horror. Tom Atkins is a very highly regarded, but how the hell did he become this leading guy? Because he is an ugly son of a bitch. And I say that very lovingly. I actually have an action figure of him from Night of the Creeps, but
but I don't know how highly regarded he is either. I mean,
well, he's big in the horror community, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, no, you're right. He's an unlikely leading man, and I think
it's his stature, because he's like he's a pretty good sized guy. It's just his stature. He could carry the movie literally on his shoulders.
I feel like there's a degree of the era here too. I mean, nowadays, as we say sometimes on our podcast, because we watch a lot of older movies, nowadays you got to be like a handsome dude to be a main character in a movie. And I feel like, when you go back and you watch movies from the 70s and stuff like that, people look more real. They're less polished. They look more like normal people to me. Even like the movie stars in the 70s. They're not
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, they're not bleach white teeth and perfect skin and perfect hair, and they're just a little more natural looking. And that's one of the reasons I love 70s films and 80s films and stuff. I don't know. There's a
bit more realism.
Yeah, there's a polish that has come with film these days that I don't totally love. I watch these older movies and they feel more tactile. They feel like real people to me a little.
Well, you think about, like we're talking about real. I mean, look at old Clint Eastwood. Look at Charles Bronson.
Yeah,
that man is in no way.
Charles Bronson's not going to be a star in.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
it's just not.
I've never heard my mom go goo gaga over him like she did Tom Selleck from Magnum PI or anybody like that. But Charles Bronson was a leading man. He had a whole line of movies. He was the main star, but it's just something about them that they feel like they could carry a movie.
Well, I don't think I would have so much of an issue with Tom Atkins if it wasn't for the fact that the women that they pair him up with tend to be like 20 years younger than him in all of these movies where he's banging them.
Well, that's the funny thing. Yeah. Is, talking about of the era, men being women were not afforded that luxury. All the women are still stunning in all these movies. You know what I mean? As a woman, unfortunately, you still had to be gorgeous to be leading, and men got a little pass for not being so. But
and honestly, in a movie like this, you've got two female quote unquote leads here. I mean, you have quite a few female characters in this movie, but if you were to switch the characters of Stevie Wayne and what's Jamie Lee Curtis's character's name?
Elizabeth.
If you were to swap the actresses, like I would have a whole lot easier of a time with Adrienne Barbeau and Tom Atkins being a thing, because they seem to be pretty relative in age. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is still like, this is only a couple years after Halloween. She's just right around 20, 21 years old. And Tom Atkins is almost 40.
Yeah,
you know?
And Tom-
when it cuts to them, waking up in bed together, you are a little like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but Tom Atkins got into the movie because of Adrienne Barbeau, because they're friends.
Yeah.
She's the one who got him in the movie.
Right.
And brought him to John Carpenter. So that's how he got his start. You even got two bombshell ladies, basically, Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, and then Janet Leigh in her day during Psycho. She was a blonde bombshell back then.
And Nancy
beautiful.
Kyes, am I saying that right?
Yeah, well, we're going to.
She was Nancy Loomis back then. Yeah.
Yes,
because that's what she was
Yes,
in
Nancy
Halloween.
Loomis. Yeah, true. And she's gorgeous as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think she's up against Jamie Lee Curtis and PJ Souls and Halloween. So like she's one of three there. In this movie, I actually was like, wow, like how did I not notice her more in Halloween? Because I find her pretty attractive in this movie. Like just following Janet Leigh around and kind of them two nudging at each other and giving each other shit the whole time.
Yeah, it's a fun little dynamic they have. And mentioning Halloween, that was one thing with this watch for me. I don't think I've ever watched The Fog so closely after watching Halloween. And
the similarities
that very much changed my perspective. I enjoyed The Fog more this time than any watch I've had with it. And I think it's largely because I just came off of Halloween so recently. And, I mean, obviously you have some people from Halloween in this, and it's so close after Halloween. It really feels like it could almost exist in the same universe, the Carpenter verse. I don't know. The vibe just worked for me this time in a way that it hasn't previously.
Well, I know Carpenter originally, when he made this, kind of like how he did Imagined Halloween, when he did Fog, he was going to try to make it an anthology. He wanted to do a Fog like anthology. And I think that's why we get all these stories through the movie, is I kind of wondered later he was going to use each individual story as another movie, and how they could all tie back to, maritime ghost stories and stuff like that. Because I mean,
in retrospect, I would love to see that shit now.
Yeah. That'd be kind of
cool. And I mean, that's the thing too, like us coming up, being children in the 80s when these movies were being released and not really knowing the backside of the production of it, Carpenter's plans that he had for Halloween and this and stuff like that he wanted to do back then, he had a very big scale scheme that he wanted to do for these movies that just he couldn't afford to do, or the studios wouldn't let him do, because he created a character in Michael Myers that was so iconic. So obviously they want sequels of that, but I would have loved to have seen John Carpenter go down that anthology road and just kind of keep that theme going. And he could have, I think that could have been something else. And if he weren't pushing 80 now, I think it would be one of those where like, hey, we want to let you do what you wanted to do back in the 80s now, but I don't know if he'd really have the drive to do it nowadays. He just wants to sit and watch basketball and play video games now. So
and write songs with his son.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds
Which
like
I would love to catch one of their performances. They toured a couple years ago.
We can go together, brother.
Yeah, like I would love.
We should make a trip for that. That would be very cool. But
how about them and Gunship
concert?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Which could potentially be a thing, because John Carpenter has worked with Gunship. So,
and Laserhawk opens the show.
Yeah, there you go. That would be like a dream come true for me. One thing I do want to bring up about Tom Atkins in this too is his character's name is Nick Castle.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a few characters in this movie named after either, because Nick Castle was the guy who played Michael Myers in Halloween, the original Halloween.
One of the guys.
Yeah, one of the guys. And then you had Tommy Wallace in this, which is from Tommy Lee Wallace. He actually went on to direct Halloween 3, but he was on board with most of these Carpenter movies when he started. So I was like, all right, guys, were we writing the script and like, I don't know what to name this guy. Let's just name him after Nick. Okay, what's your name? Oh, just Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it with Loomis already and other examples as well that I can't recall. But yeah, it's fun when they kind of play the name game.
And we've got Dean Cundy behind the camera again. I mean,
which absolutely shows. Man, I like all the outdoor stuff, on location stuff in this. I love so much. The coastal shots, the beach. Oh man, it looks so good. Like I love all that on location stuff.
There is a shot of Adrienne Barbeau getting to the radio station and walking down the stairs, and the shot of her going down the stairs and just looking at the seascape and everything that's out in front of her. I distinctly remember saying to Jenny, that shot is awesome.
Yeah. And I love that the promos are playing on repeat during that sequence, but we haven't gotten to that point, but there's a lot of great images in this. I mean, I love the aspect ratio. I love the like in the opening credits, since we're right at the beginning, when the gas station pump falls on the ground, the pump handle, and it's just laying on the ground pumping gas. I mean, that looks incredible. The scene where she's driving, and it's just kind of it's framed around the windshield, looking at her driving through that the beautiful hills on the cliffs and stuff. God damn. Right. I mean, gorgeous. Eye candy.
Because that's when we first get where Eric's talking us. We first start getting that first fog bank moving in, and they're talking about it, and the town's going crazy. Like chairs are moving, doors are shuttering, car lights are on, horns. Like you said, the gas pump falls off.
Yeah.
The car lift in the gas station is going up. You're like, what the hell is going on? Which you think later, after I see all the cars in this movie, automatically I'll go, oh, this is how he got some ideas for Christine.
Yeah, Christine was just one of those cars which drove away and appeared in its own movie later.
That's what it is. One of the ghosts is in the car and went on down the road. There you go. That's it.
You can tie them together. Yeah. And I don't think John Carpenter had even met Stephen King at this point.
And just, these are sort of basic ghost things, right? Like you're describing, but I mean, I love all the phones ringing. And you're just seeing that stuff has such a Carpenter feel, just sort of like empty streets, that sort of kind of a little creepy, empty nighttime. You see stuff like that in Precinct 13. You see stuff like that in Prince of Darkness, these sort of night scenes that are just sort of unnerving.
We touched on this briefly on Not a Bomb, and in like the first 10 years of Carpenter's career, those movies really kind of run, even the stuff that he produced, because Dean Cundy was attached as a cinematographer to a lot of those movies. Not even though John Carpenter wasn't directing, like a lot of the same crew is doing those movies. Carpenter's just producing, and like that's I said on the show, I was like, Carpenter is the director I've been watching all my life that I didn't realize I was watching, because there are so many instances where, like Big Trouble in Little China, for instance, I would have never thought was a John Carpenter movie as a kid. If you would have told me that the same guy that directed Halloween did Big Trouble in Little China, I would have told you were crazy. But looking at it now, I'm like, oh, this is totally a John Carpenter movie. Like you see DNA of his style the longer he goes. And that's what I love about him. Like you almost know exactly what to expect out of a John Carpenter movie until you get to something like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, or like when he had to work with studios that did a lot of the control. Like he wasn't the independent filmmaker anymore, so he wasn't calling a lot of the shots. So that's when those things started to kind of go to the wayside. I like that Jamie Lee Curtis is back here. She's a hitchhiker that is picked up by Tom Atkins in a old as dirt truck that is featured throughout the movie.
Hey, dude, that is a late 40s Ford truck, because I've helped restore one just like it.
Yeah. That's cool. And I think it's a pretty damn good jump scare when they're driving down the road and the glass just blows out of the car like that. I jumped when I watched it this time because I forgot it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's effective. And all the glass breaking in this movie, starts to add up, and they start to go, what's going on,
But in the midst of all of this crazy stuff going on, the glass blowing out of the truck and everything, I mean, during this time, we also go back to Father, what's his name, Jason?
Malone.
Father Malone. And
Father Carl Malone.
He played for the Utah Jazz.
The walls shake, and one of the sections of the wall pops out, and then he sees that there's something hidden behind the wall. And that's where we get this diary that becomes kind of our tell throughout this movie as to what's going on as we go through.
Right. The journal reveals that the town was founded. The founders of the town rejected a leper colony that wanted to move in, I guess, a mile away. They wanted to, and they were uncomfortable having a leper colony so close to them.
It's pretty shitty.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah. We find out later what really happens, but we just get the first glimpse of this town has got some dark history.
Right, and they're about to celebrate their 100-year
100-year anniversary.
Right. And maybe that's why the town is shaking and car lights are on and gas is pumping all over the ground. We don't know yet.
And one thing I found kind of funny about how Holbrook being in this role is you're used to him being kind of a very likable, funny character. And in this, he is completely like deadpan and you don't really like him too much, even though he's a priest. You know, it's kind of funny.
I mean, he's funny. He's like a drunk.
Yeah.
Through the whole movie, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Even when Ben's trying to get paid.
Before he even sees this stuff, he's a drunk. He's miserable before all this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When John Carpenter's trying to get paid for the work he's been doing, he's like, come in at 6 o'clock tomorrow and I'll pay. You know?
Yeah, he docks him 2 hours just because he wanted to get paid. Well, come in at 4. No, you won't get paid. No, you're not coming to 6.
But they introduce us to Stevie Wayne through the radio station. And I like that they kind of have her set up as our narrator or framing device for the movie. She's the one who's going to kind of lead us through the town, kind of give us the geography of everything that's going on here.
Yeah.
And of course we've talked Adrienne Barbeau, beautiful young lady. I like her presence in this. However, the longer the movie goes on and the more she's on the radio doing the ahoy mateys, like it starts to grate on me a little bit.
Really? Oh,
yeah, a little bit.
I don't know. I like it every time she talks like that.
I don't. I don't mind it. You know what's cool is in horror movies, communication is always an issue, right? The phones don't work. The phones are out. You can't call so and so. You can't. One person doesn't know what going on with the other person. I like that Stevie is sort of a central hub. And she can communicate with everyone, but everyone else can't communicate with each other. So we have times where people call into her, tell her something, and she can share it or if she sees something, she can say it over the radio and people can hear it in their radio in their car. It's a really fun kind of, it's how everyone kind of gets information in this movie. And it's a fun way to divvy out that info where some people can get it, some people can't. Are they listening to the radio? Or are they not? She doesn't know if they can hear her. She's just putting it out there. It's a fun way to kind of play with communication.
Yeah. And I like that they set up her and Sheriff Brackett from Halloween. I don't have the actor's name in front of me, but another star from Halloween comes in here.
Yep.
And I like that they've never met each other. I presume, am I wrong in assuming that? I don't think they've ever met each other.
No.
He's the weatherman, she's the radio person, and he just calls and gives her the weather.
Yeah, because he's saying that, hey, we would need to meet, because I think at one point he's trying to hit her up to go to dinner so they can actually meet.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the conversation between them, and I like where it goes within the movie later too. How they don't know each other, they just are voices on a phone. And then how that plays in later is really cool to me.
Part of why I don't mind the radio stuff with her is that you can see that she struggles sometimes to put on that radio voice. She's stressed. She's worried about her kids. She's stressed about different things at times. And you can tell it's work, and it's her job, and she's a little overwhelmed by it at times. And she has to put on that voice, that radio voice. She has to be on for the radio, and
that's why they call it a radio personality,
right? And if she didn't have that, I think it would start to bother me. But the fact that she has to put on that face for the radio, and it kind of gets to her, I think it works for me.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of her, because of Dan and them talking back and forth about this fog bank that is moving against the wind, Dan says, and we get our guys at the seagrass, and she just calls right out to him on the radio because he's got, like you said, communication. They're away, I think it was like 30 miles or something out. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and she's talking to the guys on the seagrass, and again, because of that voice, they're just like, oh my God, it's Stevie's calling us out, and they're fighting over who actually knows her or met her and stuff on
Right,
the boat.
the guy that saw her at the grocery store. He says you would want to meet her.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's that voice that it just puts it on. You're like, ooh. I mean, it's Adrienne Barbeau. You see her, but the voice makes it better.
But the scene with the boat and them out in the middle of the water and this fog rolling in, I'll go ahead and say this is probably my favorite scene of the movie. I like that this fog just rolls in out of nowhere and you don't get to see what's surrounding them, but this big, huge ship just rolls in next to this little boat. This is our introduction to these ghost pirates or whatever you want to call them, the lepers. I think these guys look amazing. You don't see much of them, but I think they're creepy as shit.
The less you see of them, the better. I think the moments where you do see them more, like at the end, is less effective. I like the fact that we don't see them. You see an arm, you see their arms a lot, reaching in through things. And I like the bang. I like the bang on the door. Doom, 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 doom. Like that feels like something that's almost iconic. It's not quite there, but
almost like a scary stories to tell in the dark sort of thing.
Like a thing that would become like a movie, like a famous movie thing is that knock. And it's just not quite unique enough to be that, but it's almost there. It is, because they do it a few times in the film. They take that hook and they just kind of bang that hook on the door, and it works for me. It's creepy. I like when they open the door and it's just like a wall of fog. You just cannot see anything.
I wonder how much fog juice they use for this movie.
So much fog juice, bro.
But I got one thing to point out.
This movie is juiced.
It's juiced. Because I mean, we just did The Thing, and we did the movie Tremors. What is it with movies and the generator's gone out?
Oh, I made a note of that, dude. The generator.
Because we got a generator later.
We do.
We got another generator, and we got a generator right here.
It's a problematic machine. Generators go out left and right. Hey, I mean, if I'm ever in a situation where I have a generator going and it goes off, I'm going to be on my highest alert. Let me tell you.
It's gone, Eric.
Because you either got an alien pulling it down, a ghost, or a graboid coming after you if your generator goes out.
Either way, you're in trouble.
It's never good when the generator goes out.
I'll put it on my list of when I get the DeLorean. I'll go back and I will figure out what the issue is with all the generators. And I don't remember what it was I said in the listener question episode.
You wanted to fix well, we can't say. We'll spoil.
No, we're
fixing.
Got
to listen to the listener questions episode for that.
That's right.
We were gonna fix a certain arachnid movie, so that's all.
Right.
But yeah, the generator goes out, and then we get our first basically kills of the movie too.
Yeah,
and they're pretty gruesome.
Yeah, they are. I mean, that's one thing about this movie is it's not super bloody at all.
No. In fact, I could use a little more.
Yeah,
personally,
and that's probably what Jason was talking about with Carpenter is like you need a little bit more here. And I don't want to jump ahead too much, but it'll come up towards the end in some of my feelings about this movie. But yeah, it seems to be a little neutered. I'll go ahead and just put that out there.
Yeah, they could have stretched their legs a little bit on this one.
I do have to point out that the guy that actually sees the fog on the boat, he's the Tommy Wallace character. But you know who that guy is, right? His name is George Buck Flower. He's also our park bench guy from Back to the Future.
Oh man,
that's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut
because he was also in They Live and Pumpkinhead. Because when I saw his face, I'm like, he looks so familiar. Who is that? So I had doing our research like we normally do it, and it come up Back to the Future, and I went, oh, he's park bench guy.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the character's name in Back to the Future.
I thought I had a good super deep cut because the kid in the movie, Adrienne Barbeau's son,
Andy,
he resembles the younger Brody in Jaws.
Yeah, he does.
And I thought it was him, and I was like, is that the kid who played Sean in Jaws? And I looked it up, and it's not. I thought that would have been a nice little tie to John Carpenter and Steven Spielberg.
Another one, when I saw that kid, because I thought he was one of the Lawrence brothers.
I can see that too.
Just look at him recording like he's a cousin or an older cousin. Because it's like, is that one of the Lawrence?
A distant
kids?
cousin. Before we leave this this attack scene, on the boat,
yes.
I just couple notes I just wanted to get out here. One is the score is awesome during that scene.
Yeah.
There's just like this droning sound that really brings this feeling of dread as these guys slowly realize that they're being boarded. I also want to note the reverse fog, which you get some reverse stuff in a lot of Carpenter movies. I think of Prince of Darkness, and amongst others, but where the fog is just basically in reverse, but it's basically getting sucked up, which is effective. I like that stuff. It makes me uncomfortable. It looks weird. You know what I mean?
All the work they do with the fog in this is really good to me.
The fog work. Quality fog work.
Well, it's a combination of using the fog and the lights, because a lot of the times when the pirates or ghosts or whatever we want to label them as during this, whenever they're around is when you have a whole dense fog around wherever they are, plus the lights shining in, so you really can only see their silhouettes.
Right, they're backlit.
And I like that. That's all you see. Like, you can't see past that at all. And I think that's really effective and makes when they do show up that much more creepy.
Right, and that's where it's a little less effective at the end. While they are still backlit, maybe in the VHS era, you wouldn't see as much detail as you do now in HD, but you start to see some of those cracks there, and it doesn't look as good. But when they're fully mysterious and backlit, and you maybe just get an arm or a hand reaching in, that stuff is the best stuff in this movie as far as creep factor goes.
Right.
Because like right after this is where the Dan and Stevie are talking, and then we see that Nick has got some major skills because he's already got Elizabeth in bed, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And the fog's rolling into his house, and he's got the knock at his door.
Yeah.
But this time you see the knock, but his doors are glass, and you can actually see a figure standing there, knocking on his door. And
man, the dialogue of them in bed together is great. Carpenter's, some of that stuff isn't always awesome in Carpenter films, but I really like that scene of them just hanging out in bed together, and they're kind of talking, and they're kind of playful with each other, and kind of, they don't really, he asks her what her name is, right?
That far into it. Yeah. Well, hey, we just hooked up. So what's your name?
But that's a very natural, it's a nice little moment that I don't think I noticed in previous watches that I just wanted to mention.
I'm always taken aback by how quickly he gets her in bed. So I think I get distracted when they're having the conversation, because I'm just like, God dang, he's already banging this chick.
I like Nick in this movie. He's smart. He's kind of your character that goes, something's wrong. He wants to investigate. He wants to figure out what's going on. He's a seasoned, I don't even know what he does in this town. He's a seasoned seaman.
He's
a seaman.
Salty.
Yeah, he's a salty guy. And he's a pretty brave dude, like he wants to go find these dudes that, the ship that's gone missing. He wants to figure it out. He's an active protagonist, which is always enjoyable for me.
I think the one thing I guess I never picked it up in the other one, because I know the whole witching hour or whatever you want to call it is 12 to 1. But remember when he opens the door, the ghost is, because right as he does it, his clock or something breaks.
Yep.
And it dings, and then it breaks at 1 o'clock. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, I guess they can't kill anybody after 1 a.m. because that ghost disappears in the fall.
That's what I assumed.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think that. Yeah, they just ran out of time. He could.
Yeah, that's the 12 to 1.
Yeah, that's why he didn't get killed right there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
because you can see him like picking the hook up.
I never picked up on that. I just thought, like, why didn't they kill him right there? But yeah, that makes sense.
At 1 o'clock. So yeah,
that's what keyed me into the fact that, this isn't going to happen over a 24-hour period. And then we obviously cut to the next day, with Stevie's son finding he sees a gold coin in the rocks.
Yeah.
And then the waves rush over it, and all of a sudden it's a piece of driftwood.
It says Dane on it.
Which is I mean, if I were a kid and saw something like that, I'd be a little more apprehensive to picking that up and taking it to show mom.
No way, dude. You find a piece of an old shipwreck? Are you kidding me? That's like the find of a century.
I'm talking Goonies, about finding a gold coin that turns into a piece of shipwreck.
Kids are dumb.
But I want to point out something about that, because we were talking about the score earlier. The music right there that keys in after that, I wrote the note because I mean it's Carpenter, but if you go back and listen and it's not all Carpenter, it seems like he threw in some influences for a lot of movies because me and Josh did Phantasm. There is some Phantasm type music playing there with a little Exorcist threw in over the top of it.
I get the Exorcist like crazy.
Yeah, because Carpenter's always done it, but he's never done that high pitch like that ding ding ding, like high, and it sounded a lot like Phantasm, like laid over what he normally does with the little piano Exorcist sound in there. I was like,
and I am a big fan of Carpenter's scores, but this one is the one that's like the pitch he gets with that one is a little too high pitched. Yeah. Like it's to the point where like you're ready for that scene to be over because it's like, okay, this is too much on my ears.
I have to agree. Yeah, that part is a little hard on the ears. After this is probably my favorite shot in the film. When he's running back home, and there's a shot from inside the house, and it's looking out the window, and it shows him running back to the house, and then it pans across the family photos, and then it comes to the door, and he runs in. Man, that shot is so good. I mean, so good. I mean, what it does for setting the scene, for giving you information about the family, all that stuff. And it just looks incredible. Man, I'm gushing. I've been gushing for weeks, you guys. I've been gushing on every damn movie we're watching, but I really enjoyed this watch.
Well, my favorite part is we get to say Adrienne Barbeau in a nice, silk nightgown in bed. So that's the best part I remember.
You little creep.
Dude, Adrienne Barbeau was hot back in the day.
She was gorgeous, yeah.
Yes.
So much so that John Carpenter decided that he was gonna ditch Deborah Hill and go with Adrienne Barbeau. That was some controversy around this movie.
John Carpenter, you bad boy. We still love your movies though.
That's right.
Might not approve of your choices of how you handle your women things. So.
And it goes into the scene that we talked about earlier about Stevie walking to the radio station. She's taken the driftwood with her, and then you get that awesome shot of the coast right there where she's at the lighthouse doing
what a
location. Radio show.
What a cool spot.
Mm-hmm. And it's a real place. I mean, it's still there to this day, I believe. I would love to go see that.
How cool would
place
that be? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, dude. And but if they let you know where this place is too. I don't think Antonio Bay. I think that Antonio Bay is a fictional place. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't know this is Antonio Bay, they let you know quite a bit in this movie.
Well, she's doing her promos and stuff. She always has to mention the location. Plus, they're talking about the what is it? The centennial? Would that be?
Yeah. The 100-year.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, we should mention. We've got Mrs. Williams and Sandy. Going to, they're going to talk to Father Malone about doing a prayer or speaking at the event.
Right.
And this is where, he's kind of spooked now. Dude. Yeah.
Spooked, I don't think is the word. Like he lays it out and it's just like, okay, Father, are you okay?
Yeah. But you want to talk about coming off Halloween, Father Malone jumping out of the shadows. Scared the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah, when they're walking through, he's like, ah!
That man hops out of the shadows like Mike Myers, and it's the weirdest jump scare because he's just like, hello, but he comes out of blackness.
They should have done the Michael Myers shot with just the corner of his face lighting up slowly, and then he reaches out, hello. Because we got it's actually there's two things going on. We got this going on, and they found the seagrass, and now they're aboard the seagrass too. This is going on at the same time as this conversation.
And it's abandoned. They can't find anybody on board.
Elizabeth and Nick are there checking it out and noticing all the gauges are exploded, and the temperature gauge froze at 20 degrees. And stuff like that, and they're checking out the boat. But then at the same time we're hearing all this, you get the kind of the scary thing going on at the church with Father Malone reading them some of this stuff.
I do like how they bounce back and forth between him and the shots on the boat.
Yeah. And then Tom Atkins gives us his ghost story.
Yeah, so you get
Trevor
two stories here, and I like Hal Holbrook's performance reading the story. He's very nervous. He's very unsettled reading it. You can tell it's almost like he's not telling a story from in the same way the old man in the beginning is telling a story to be entertaining. He's reading it almost like unwillingly. He doesn't want to read it. He doesn't. Well, actually, that's one of my problems with the movie because he stops reading the book and until the end, it's like, dude. He actually says, "I can't read anymore," and it's like, bro, you need this information. Keep reading.
Yeah.
Well, he's spooked because he is tied to the bloodline that caused the problem here. So I think that was enough for him to go, shit. Like I'm part of something that is a big deal and is going to end up being pretty bad for this town.
Well, because his grandfather wrote it.
Yeah,
it's his grandfather who did all this stuff going on. So I mean, it's kind of disturbing. So I mean, even his grandfather was a Father Malone, and he is still Father Malone. So I could see where that's kind of like, ooh.
But that we get the ghost pirate, the Blake. He names
talk about Mr.
Blake in this,
and the ship Elizabeth Dane.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which, if we're going back to that piece of driftwood that says Dane on it, Stevie has taken this to work with her, and this is I don't know if I really like the scene so much, but I like the effect that they do with her placing the driftwood on top of the cassette decks, and it starts to seep water out of it, and then it changes from saying Dane to 6 must die. Like that whole thing there, and especially with the water rising up out of the driftwood, I think looks really good.
Yeah, the water seeping out of it is a great effect, and it's a great idea. I like the idea of water in this when they go to the seagrass and the engine's been flooded and the body they find has been decomposed underwater but it's not even wet. The lungs are full of water. Like there's all this water damage, but nothing's wet. All that stuff is really kind of a cool idea.
Could you guys make out that? I mean, I know she had the promo playing when she was in there and this happened, but do you notice that the voice changed? Because I know like the water and the electrical and things.
Yeah.
It sounds like something's actually being said at this low demonic type voice sound type thing.
I didn't catch it when I was watching.
Couldn't make it out. I couldn't.
The first scene, but I was watching some clips of the movie and I caught something there, but I could not make out what was being said.
Yeah.
I do find it hilarious that conveniently there's a fire extinguisher sitting right next to her on the ground. It's like, like it's like I have a fire extinguisher in my house, but it's like under my sink, and it's like if a fire broke out, my ass would be running to go find a fire extinguisher. It's so convenient in movies how fire extinguishers are literally an arm's length away from the people that need them.
What do you think? She's in the top of a lighthouse in this round room. It's not very big because we see that when she's later running in the movie, and it's a business, so you got to be fire safety. You know, got to have fire marshal, OSHA, all this kind of stuff like that. So I could see it being right there. If you want to,
I'll go with you on that, Jason. She's. I mean, she's
room.
No,
and it's round.
Good Lord, Jason doesn't even like this movie, and I can't even get a win here. Fuck you guys.
Well, I mean, if she has a fire in there, no fire truck can get to it. You got to put that shit out quick. You got to be ready. But I agree.
Come on,
right,
Josh.
It's right, literally within arm's reach. So yeah, it's a little convenient.
When the body falls out and scares Jamie Lee Curtis, I love that.
Yeah,
you get that scream queen scream, man.
Yeah, and the look of the eyes, how the eyes have just like sunken down, and just the effects on the face there, I think are really, really cool and creepy.
Definitely.
So
I'm sure where we're at.
now I was kind of half paying attention here with Janet Leigh's character, but I'm led to believe that her husband was one of the guys on this boat.
Yes,
Am I
from
correct?
the beginning, he didn't come home that night, so
Right.
she's been increasingly nervous about that.
I think he's the captain. We got the guy that was our park bench guy from Back to the Future. He was the other guy that got killed first. You had the two guys, and then the guy that was with the generator.
Right.
He's the other guy. I guess that's her husband. I think he might have been the captain.
I don't think any widow would be at a point where she's like, well, my town's 100 years old. I still have to speak at the anniversary, blah, blah. Like, like that doesn't really sit well with me.
I think she's trying to stay busy so she doesn't freak out. Sandy, is it Sandy?
Keep her mind running.
Yeah, Sandy says you should go home, and she's like, that's the last thing I should do, because she's just going to sit at home and worry about her husband. So she's just trying to stay busy. I think it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. We get that body that they find on the boat, and we bring it to the doctor, and the doctor is Napoleon Wilson from Precinct 13, Darwin Jostin. So that was a fun presence to have. Not that he has a whole lot to do, but it's fun to see him show up in there.
And I like how they do this, because I mean, he, like you just said earlier, Eric, where he's talking about the body is like it's been deep underwater for like months or something. What they're saying,
I think he says he saw somebody underwater for like 10 plus days, and this looks longer than that. Yeah, way worse than that. But the cool thing about it is, right before this, I guess you can see in the distance that the fog is starting to roll in, way in the distance. I think it's a shot with Andy, and then we get the whole. I wrote it down. Is this whole scene is very Michael Myers. The whole scene, even the shot, because Elizabeth's standing there, you see the sheet move. And then the shot from under the table with the boots hitting the ground is like, all I could picture is Michael Myers in his coveralls. Yeah.
Walking up to
I
scare
can see
her.
that. Definitely the boot, like putting the foot down, it kind of feels like, dude's
my biggest issue with this scene is it goes nowhere. I kind of wish that it could have gone somewhere a little more, other than the body just falling over once once she sees it.
He carved the number 3 on the ground.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, that doesn't satisfy me in this scene. Like
well, you don't like the number 3, Josh?
No, I love the number 3 actually, but
it's the magic number
3.
But like, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna set that scene up for me and creep me out like that, give me some bigger of a payoff than carving a 3 on the ground. Like that scene.
I agree. That's
has the
part
potential to be really good, and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that's part of the slow burn of this, and why I think on my first couple watches it was a little slow. It has to kind of grow on you, I think. But yeah, there not as much happens in this, and that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, I think this is about the time of the movie where Stevie's starting to get freaked out about the whole board. Nick is thinking something's going on. Here's her on the radio, and they're talking about the fog moving in because the fog horns are going off. And them two actually have a conversation on the phone, because him and Liz are at the bar, and he hears her thing, and he calls to talk to her, because I think the two of these are thinking there's something really wrong with this town going on with this fog.
Yeah,
because she had that and the stuff that they dealt with. Yeah,
our characters are starting to converge now, which is nice to kind of get all these people coming together, that, because they were all separate in the beginning, and they're coming together and realizing what's going on.
Well, since we're talking about our characters and they're starting to come together, let's get to Almost Famous.
I know that dude.
I don't know them. I know her.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name?
That guy who was in that movie that was out last year.
This is a pretty stacked cast for 1980, I think. But at this time, I don't think a lot of them were knowns. I mean, obviously, you've got Janet Leigh, the first screen queen here. Her daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis, at the time was just out in Halloween, so she wasn't a famous person. Tom Atkins is kind of prime real estate for our Almost Famous, because you see him, but he's a very underground cult status sort of star. Like I said, he's big in the horror community, but I think he's a good little candidate for Almost Famous here.
I think him, or even Adrienne Barbeau, because I mean, she was known, but she was never a Jamie Lee Curtis.
True.
She was all like, she did Swamp Thing. She did a lot of more like Tom Atkins. They kind of stayed in that role of film. I mean, she was a sex symbol for a while in the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. And but she never reached.
She comes back to work with Carpenter and Escape from New York, and
so
mine was Hal Holbrook. You might say he's too famous to be Almost Famous. I mean, he's an Emmy and Tony Award winning actor, but I don't know that he's a household name, and he's been in so many things, as recently as Lincoln. So, I mean, he's worked for a long time.
I think the thing with him is you see him in these more polished pictures nowadays, and it's kind of funny to go back to a movie from early 80s and see him in a John Carpenter horror movie, you know?
Yeah. I think he's good in this too.
I like him.
Yeah, I do. I think I would go with Tom Atkins or Adrienne Barbeau.
I also wrote down Nancy Loomis, but I mean, after this, you don't really see much of Nancy Loomis again. She's in Halloween 3.
Yeah,
but I can't recall her being in much after that.
That's why I have to go with the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Atkins. I mean, we could name an award after Tom Atkins. He's one of those stature of like underground cult actors. It's like if you are a big fan of the movies he's in, you obviously know who he is. But any normal Joe Schmo would see him and just go, "Oh, he's that guy from the '80s. I don't know his name." Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah. We're going to give you the Tom Atkins Award.
It's the Tom Atkins Award.
Which you would have thought.
He's 20 years older than you, and he's going to bang you award.
Yeah. He's going to bang me?
They give it to the guy who plays the older guy in the film who bangs all the 20-year-olds in the film.
Right.
That's what it is. He's the dad banging the 20-year-old co-eds. That's what it is.
So yeah, and you mentioned that Nick calls Stevie because he's starting to figure out that there's some crazy shit going on in the town. And I think he is going to the radio station to meet up with her. Am I right?
They leave there to head out to because we see the cool truck again flying down the road, but she sees the fog moving in and it's getting close to her house.
Well, the weatherman gives her.
Weatherman Dan gets
that's what turns Nick around is she gets an update on the fog and she's
on the phone isn't she on the phone with Dan and
he's calling
and then that's when she goes
because they see fog on the radar, which I don't think that's how fog works, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, if it's dense enough, it will.
I mean, on a Doppler or something, I assume, but not that. I don't know. That felt a little funky. The little radar.
Well, I mean, how I
don't know. I can't speak with any authority on weather monitoring devices from 1980.
How dependable are weathermen really? So, but I like the scene with him. I mean, she's trying to tell him that there's potentially an issue there, and he can hear her on the phone. But again, we've got a cool shot of him opening the door with this dense fog and a light shining. You can't see anything other than that. Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of, they've set up enough playfulness between him and her, and him kind of giving like hitting on her a little bit that you're almost sad when he does get the hook in the neck.
Yeah,
they never do get a chance to meet each other.
Yeah, he's a likable presence, and you don't want him to die. And her panicking on the phone adds to the.
And didn't I hear that actor's coming back to be in the new Halloween sequel? Didn't I hear he's making he's coming back as Sheriff Brackett?
I don't know, but I'm trying to remember. I think so. I think
a handful of people from Halloween are coming back for Halloween Kills.
Yes, he's going to be in Halloween Kills.
He is. He is Lee Brackett in Halloween Kills. Yeah.
I think that's cool as hell.
That's very cool. I'll be excited to see
that
him
he's
again.
Coming back.
Totally.
Yeah, there's a few people reprising their roles from when they were children or older back then. So,
now Stevie knows that this stuff is coming towards her house, and her son's there with their nanny. And this scene's a little heartbreaking to me because this little old lady gets taken out, and like she's probably, other than the kid, like one of the most innocent people we see on screen.
Mrs. Kobritz.
Yeah, Miss Kobritz.
I love this beach house too, by the way, before we get into Kobritz.
Yeah, with all the open windows.
Oh, what an awesome house, man. I want to live there. Is it free now that Miss Kobritz was murdered there? I'll move in.
Yeah, but the thing that leads up to this again is the fog coming to town, took out the phone lines and took out the generator for the town. And then Stevie has
the whole
generator.
The whole power plant is out. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole power plant's out. And then she knows what's going on, so she gets her generator started, and that's when she gets this,
she starts getting the banging on her door. And
not yet. Not yet. This is when she goes back. She's screaming to send people to her house for her son. Yeah. She's telling everybody, if you were listening to this, go to so-and-so address. And that's when they turn around in the truck. to go back to Andy's house to go help out Andy from Stevie hollering on the radio.
When he turns that truck and he, like, you would think he would just slide it around and it'd be like a Fast and the Furious sort of thing, but he can't quite cut that truck that way. And he has to like drive over the people's lawn to turn around.
No, there's no power steering in those trucks. So, I mean, just to fight that wheel, just even to get it to turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when we get you said Miss Cobritz?
Cobritz, yeah.
And Andy are at the house. The fog is rolling in. You get the banging at the door again. And of course, just nice Miss Cobritz, the babysitter opens the door. Hey, is somebody here?
Her death's got a nice jump scare too. Like you're expecting it coming, but it almost like it's one of those where like if you play music, like it hits on the 2 instead of the 3. You know what I mean? Like it comes in early and it kind of gets you.
That's a great point. Yeah, you're right.
Because Andy turns as he turns to walk out of the room. It's like,
yep.
It's just like that for quick. And because he don't even hear anything because he's in this process of walking away. And then we get, I like I said, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. It's not one of my favorite Carpenter movies. But I was sitting there watching this. And I'm like, does the kid die?
I was thinking the same thing. Like I couldn't remember. Yeah.
And I'm like, because they're beating the ghosts with the hooks are beating the doors.
Yeah,
down.
they get pretty close. They get pretty close.
Like Candyman's here. We got hooks coming through the door. And I'm like, what's going on? I know what you did last summer, 10 minutes ago, whatever. I'm like, is the kid gonna die? And then of course, Nick and Liz
Castle saves the day.
Yes, a complete stranger at your window says, "Come with me."
I would, if I was a kid, I saw a man standing window like this, I'd been screaming at him.
Yeah, well,
terrified at the door.
What are my options? Do I go with creepy dead pirate guy with a hook, or do I go with a guy I just met, like, and he's trying to get me out of the house? So, like, I would take option 2. I would go with Nick if I was him.
I could agree with that. But Nick, he's a badass. Busts the window open, pulls the kid through the window. I mean, it's a good thing he didn't have cuts all over him because there's just glass everywhere. Yeah. You want to nitpick a scene.
Yeah, nobody gets cut for all the breaking glass in this movie.
That's very true, Eric. Nice to point that out.
But you would think with him heading that direction to go to the radio station, he stops and gets Andy. Like one thing I didn't expect when I originally watched this, and it still kind of takes me back when I watch it now, is we never get someone going and saving Stevie. She's at the radio station the entire time.
Here's a question.
I think that's pretty ballsy. Well,
here's a question I have for you guys that is a real question. She says on the radio, she kind of apologizes to her son.
Yeah, I have that here.
And kind of says like, it's kind of like her duty to stay at the radio station because there's like an emergency. It's essentially what she's saying is she has to be here to tell the town where the fog is. And she kind of apologizes to him. And I'm thinking, because she could see her house from where she's at, right? She's got a vantage point. Does she know that Andy's been rescued and she's trying to navigate them through the town because she's saying it's coming up this street, or does she not know at all? And she's saying my duty to the radio is more important than getting my own son to safety.
Well, I think she's got this existentialism of being a mother at this point of like, I have this thing that I have to pertain to here. Like, I'm going to be what helps get us through this night. I think she's realizing that. And the reality is like, she can't do anything about saving her son. So at this point, it's just a plea. If anyone can hear me, please help me.
Right.
And then it's just like, she has no clue. So she's already starting to put her last little like testament out there to like, if you hear this, know that I'm sorry. If you don't, this is me like laying my soul out that I'm trying everything I can to help you. It's a very like heartbreaking moment for the movie.
Yeah. I mean, her desperation when she's trying to get somebody to go for her kid is a good performance, I think.
Because I think that's what she does. It's like, I mean, because she can see her vantage point of being so high above the town. I mean, she can see the town laid out street by street, pretty much, obviously. But I mean, she knows that she'd holler somebody to help Andy. She knows that the fog bank has now moved over her house and is inland. So I think that's what she's saying is like, I hope my son is alive, but if he isn't, I'm still going to say, I'm sorry.
But if he isn't, oh, well, he's just a kid anyway. So, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I want to think that she sees their truck get him. And she's helping them get away from that. Works for me better. I wish it was clearer there. The idea that she just like I don't know. As a parent, I feel like you would just run right into that fog to get your kid. Who cares? So it's a little weird. It's a little murky there. I don't totally know how to read that moment.
Wow. Well, my thing is, it's like, I mean, she knows it's there and there's nothing she can do. She's driving a Volkswagen thing. The thing goes like 40 miles an hour top speed. You can ask our buddy Richard, who owns one down the road from Josh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think they go that fast. I don't think they even have seatbelts. So she knows there's no way she can get there in time. But I think she's just accepting the fact that she's just hoping that he was smart enough to stay inside. And somebody said, but I don't think there's no way, no how she saw them pull up to save him and leave.
None.
No. I'm going to take that happy little place you're at and take it away, Eric.
Well, to be honest,
no way she saw that.
If she can say what road it's on, I agree. When they show her sort of her view of the town, you can't tell anything. But she's saying it's coming up this street. It's turning. It's going up by this building or whatever. She seems to have a very clear view of the town and where it's coming. You'd think she'd be able to see if a car pulled up to her house, but maybe not.
Well, if the fog has reached her house, then she's probably blinded by that. So
true.
Yeah, but they got
the movie. The movie is called The Fog. Eric, I mean, did you watch it?
Josh,
yeah, but they weren't in the fog when they drove up. The fog had.
We're just trying to.
We see their car. They're not in the fog yet. Anyway, whatever. We don't need to.
We're trying to debate. We're trying to take the world is not rainbows and unicorns. Sorry, we're taking it away.
I'm telling you what I want to believe out of this. That Stevie didn't go. My kid's dead anyway. Moving on.
I have to protect the town.
Yeah. Anyway, I got to play more jazz.
Yeah.
Actually, that jazz is a great part of the movie, and I like the songs that they choose in different moments. Like when the weatherman dies, there's kind of a sadder jazz kind of song going.
Right.
And I guess they chose jazz as the genre of the radio station because it was cheaper, rights wise.
Probably so.
Probably, yeah.
But I like it. I like the jazz music in the movie. Since you mentioned it.
Yeah, and you can tell right here they're trying to set up something to do because we found the whole thing at the church, and she's telling them it's clear at the church because at this point, Sandy and Janet Leigh's character, I forgot her name. I can't believe I forgot.
Mrs. Williams,
Kathy. Yeah, they have left the celebration.
I mean, this is where all of our characters really start to convene together.
Yeah. So something's going on because she's telling them to go to the church because there's nothing at the church, but the whole town is now covered in fire. And even that scene where the three of them, Nick and Liz and Andy, are in the truck. It is like the fog is chasing them everywhere they go. The fog moves in, and then they turn, and it comes this way.
Janet Leigh even says at one point, "It cut us off."
Yeah,
I thought that was funny.
The way there,
I also think it's funny
that
the fog kills the phone lines too. It's just like a little too aware of because they're from 100 years ago. And it's just funny that they come in and it actually shows the fog going up the pole, the power pole or whatever, the phone line pole. And it's like, the fog knows to cut the phone line. Damn.
All the scenes of the fog rolling into the town too. I think all of that's really effective.
Oh yeah, that's cool for sure. And it was funny. It cut us off. Like it knows where we're going. It was basically driving them all to that place, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're getting to our finale. All of our characters are convening together. Let's talk about some quotes.
You're going to need a bigger quote.
I have the tagline.
Jason, what's the tagline?
Oh, I only found one. And I think it's okay. I don't know how I feel about this one, guys. Tell me what you think.
Let us hear it.
It says, lock your doors, bolt your windows. There's something in the fog.
Well, that's one of my quotes.
In the mist?
A mist. That's one of my quotes. There's something in the fog, which I think is creepy.
Yeah. One that I wrote down.
The quote is something came out of the fog. Sorry. But yeah, something came out of the fog. Still, basic idea. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
One that I wrote down was when Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins come across each other, she decides that she's going to jump in the vehicle with him. She goes, "Let me ask you one question. Are you weird?"
Because the last guy wasn't weird.
Yeah. I am weird. Yeah.
She's like, well, obviously she's a little weird and kinky. She's freaking hooked up with him the same day he picked her up. Hello.
Yeah, she's hitchhiking and hooks up with a guy she picks up while hitchhiking. God, her poor father.
Actually, I didn't think there were that many quotes except for maybe the stories, if you want to consider that a long quote, the story.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go back to the one I said at the beginning with the whole Edgar Allan Poe thing. I love that at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. I got a couple.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stevie, she says, nothing but water, Stevie, but it's better than Chicago.
Yeah,
looking over the water.
I don't know. I'd want to be there. I love their pizza.
Yeah. Father Malone says, our celebration tonight is a travesty. We are honoring murderers.
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of a good one.
I like that one.
After they find the body on the ship, she says, did you see his eyes? And he's like, yeah, I saw his eyes, or I saw the eyes, or whatever, because they were super creepy. One of the creepiest things from.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
My other favorite is Stevie. I mean, ahoy, mateys.
Yeah. That is a fun. I do love maybe it's just because I watched The Lighthouse recently, but I love this sort of like maritime, seafaring lore and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of just a nice little sliver genre. You could watch this with that as a little double bill. That would be a fun.
And y'all all live in a beach town, so
yeah, not quite
for long.
Not for long. For another week. I also have Blake. I have your gold. I liked that line. Which one?
Oh yeah, that's good. One thing I wanted to bring up. Did you guys know that the guy who portrays Blake, the ghost Blake, is Rob Bottin? The guy who does the effects.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That is very cool.
I remember reading.
I thought that was a really cool little nugget of information when I was doing research. I was like, whoa, I thought that was really cool.
There's lots of those with these movies too, like Carpenter working with a lot of the same people and bringing them into different things. And
like I said about it in the Thing episode that we did, I swear he kind of set this in motion in Hollywood where I'm a director and I'm going to keep using these people over and over. And then you had like Tarantino do the same thing later. And then Nolan does it now. Where
Scorsese too.
Scorsese, yeah.
What's funny is now Tarantino is using the recycled people from John Carpenter movies. Kurt Russell's been in like the past 3 Tarantino movies.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're at our grand finale. You've got Stevie at the lighthouse. You've got everybody else at the church. We really kind of find out just how much Father, one more time, Jason Father Malone, really is just not putting any effort into anything. He fails to read the rest of the diary, which would tell him what's going on. This hole in the wall, he doesn't decide to investigate any farther, and they find a giant gold fucking cross in the wall.
Well, because Nick reads the book, because he runs back in there to get the journal that he dropped as the fog's rolling in.
Right. Yeah,
he reads that it was the original Father Malone. Mm-hmm. Remember, the city had conspired to set the campfire up to make them crash so it would kill them, to go steal their gold after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess Father Malone ends up taking the gold, telling them, I guess he ended up stealing it from the townspeople, and he formed it into a big gold cross.
And had to hide it.
And hid it in the wall. So yeah, Father Malone's family is kind of fucked.
A couple things about this cross. One is, if it was cast out of gold, it would be at least a few hundred pounds, and an old
they
drunk
struggle with it at first.
It does seem like he's having a hard time holding on to it. But if it's solid gold, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, he's acting like it's...
Hal Holbrook is not carrying that fucking thing around.
He's acting like it's maybe 50 pounds, but it's be more like carrying 300, 400 pounds or something.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, the power of Christ compels.
Yeah, maybe so.
That's
maybe
where it goes, bro.
Yeah.
We've learned this already.
Yeah, Father Malone has not skipped leg day. He is one strong son of a bitch. Secondly, what's the point in stealing a bunch of gold if you're just going to cast it into a cross and put it in the wall? I mean, why not spend it?
Make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I think that's what it was. Is I think after he realized what he did, being a man of God, he was, That's why he took the gold from the city people in or the township and hid it. And that's the only way he felt as though it could be redeemable is to hide it and nobody have it. And
after you cast it into a cross for no reason.
Yeah.
But
he cast it into the cross just for, I guess, maybe he thought one day, God or somebody would judge him, but he turned it into a cross.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he thought that would protect him if he took this thing that caused all this evil and made it do some good in the town. I don't know. I mean, we can speculate on that all day long, but they definitely don't give us any kind of inclination as to why he did it in the movie whatsoever.
Well, and we also learn as the ghosts or whatever start to attack and break into the church, which again, you get a lot of arms through windows, but it's effective.
I love that.
It looks so cool. And there's one particular shot you learn that they don't give a shit about crucifixes because this arm reaches in and it swats this crucifix off the wall and it spins on its nail and falls down. Clearly they're not afraid of sacred ground. They don't care about crosses. That none of that stuff's going to save you from these guys,
Well, you think about it. Well, the church having something been involved with what happened to them. I think that's why that place holds no power. Yeah. Because it's partly responsible for where they're at. But the cool part of all this going on, because we have Stevie back at the lighthouse. Let's talk about her being. So that girl's got balls, dude.
She's a boss bitch, dude.
She's fighting the ghost off. And not only that, she climbs her ass on top of the lighthouse.
Yeah.
That whole rooftop sequence with her and those two ghosts is awesome.
Particularly when the one comes up behind her.
Yeah. And she takes a hook to the freaking shoulder and she pulls that motherfucker out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, I'm going to hit you in the face. And that's the first close up you get of one of the ghosts where he's all like maggots.
And that I do like when
I do like that shot.
Yeah. Cause he's rotting and slimy and
she's holding her own with these two ghosts. She's actually fighting back where everybody else just kind of gives up.
Yeah.
So, and then we get the, where, like you said, Father Malone, freaking holding that huge ass 300-pound cross.
Yeah, he does CrossFit
out there. Yeah, it goes out there and he's calling out Blake.
Well, what I like that the way they set this up is they're all in this room and it almost makes him out to be just as cowardly as we think he is throughout this movie, being as though that he's just concealing himself from everything. He's not reading. He's not doing the research. But once they find this cross, he takes it and leaves the room. And I even wrote a damn note. I was like, Father is a goddamn pussy. Like, he's taking it and running. Like I haven't seen this movie a whole lot of times and I don't remember a lot of the details. And I thought he was going to go off and do something heinous, but he actually is taking the cross to go give it to Blake. He's like, I'm going to end this.
Right.
I realized that my family did something terrible and I'm going to do the right thing here.
It does seem like he's stealing it or trying to escape with it at first, but he's going to face Blake and try to right the wrong that was happening. And I do like the look of this. I mentioned it before that, on HD, you can kind of see some of the creases in this and stuff, but I do like the overall look of the room. The guys have come into the church and this sort of standoff. And
I like that Blake has the glowing red eyes.
Yep, definitely. And the glowing eyes are great. And this is where the gold cross pays off, is that moment where it's sort of, all the light and Blake takes it and it's sort of that image of Blake taking this giant cross and all the light and it's glowing and that stuff looks really cool.
Yeah. And then and that's kind of like I saved the day. Like they take their gold, everything, the fog rolls out. I mean, you get those awesome shots of the fog rolling backwards and leaving the town. That's kind of where this movie gets me a little bit, is you've got a very vast cast of characters that are in, two different places, but mainly in one place. But like this movie has very minimal deaths in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a horror movie or even a ghost story or anything like that, like there's very minimal death in it.
Yeah. You could dial up and kill a few more people. And
I
maybe
think at least about 13 or 14 more.
Well, I mean, and it's not even the fact that so many people survive, but like all of our main characters make it out of this. Like usually within a movie that you're you're attached to some of these characters. You lose some of them, like Halloween, for instance. You're with these, PJ Souls and Nancy Loomis and Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie. You feel for them when they do die.
Yeah, our biggest loss here is the Weatherman, and we only get a couple scenes with him. So I agree.
And Miss Cobritz. I mean, we don't know much about her, but this little old lady did not deserve to die the death she died.
Well, we don't know. Maybe she did deserve it.
Maybe she did.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing at the end of this. We had the sign that says the 6. Everything had to do with the number 6. Mm-hmm. And the father even says, after they disappear because he gave them the cross, he's muttering to himself, but I was supposed to be the 6 or something like that. I'm the end of the bloodline or whatever, because they had killed 5 people, and he kept saying, I'm the 6th. And then we get the fog rolling back up under the door, real nice and slow.
I love the last shot of this movie. Love it.
And then
there is a longer shot where they don't cut away, and you actually see Hal Holbrook's head get chopped off. But they cut it for the final scene.
Man, I want that shot. That would have been
better. Yeah, if you go on YouTube, you can actually look it up. It's the fog ending uncut, and it's a very quick scene, but you see the sword go through the neck and his head come off.
That's fun. I'll have to check that out.
But ultimately, I mean, we'll go ahead and get into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Can I go first?
Why?
Go for it.
Because your guys' will probably be a lot longer than mine.
How do you know?
Trust me. My good, love the score through the whole movie, except for the high pitch where they kind of threw in 4 different movies scores over the top of one right there at the gold coin thing. And I love the cinematography. What's his name that we keep talking about? He shoots all the movies.
Cundy?
Dean Cundy. Yes, I can't think. I love, because it's very Halloween. And me being such a fan of Halloween, it's like you're watching a Halloween movie that's not a Halloween movie as far as the way the movie is shot.
Yep.
The bad, the movie's not scary. I don't even consider it a horror movie. This movie could be like a PG horror movie.
It is weird that it's rated R, because it doesn't feel like it needs to be at all.
It's slow. It's a very slow burn. Not a fan, like I said. It's down on my list for Carpenter movies. It might be just right above Ghost of Mars, so it's that low. My ugly, you guys keep talking about like you love it. Some of the fog effects in this movie are horrible. they are bad.
Example?
The main one when it's like rolling over the top of the hill when it's coming down to her, it's just horrible. And some of
are you talking about like the post stuff where it's like lit up and stuff, like the post production stuff? Because there seems to be some post stuff that it looks, it hasn't aged super well, but
like even in the city when it like the big shot when it's out, when the fog is rolling away and when it's coming in, it's so late, like it's just laid there. You could tell that it was definitely an effect that laid over the shot film, and it was just like it doesn't do it for me. I mean, I think it's good. I mean, we have some effects like that in the Evil Dead where they do the reverse of the fog.
Yeah.
You definitely know that's reversed. Carpenter did it a little better than some of those shots, but the fog, just some of the fog effect. I mean, I like the lighted fog when it's cool and eerie with the pirates there, but just some of the fog by itself, it's like, no, it doesn't hold up. So.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, y'all roll ahead. Now y'all can tear. Like I said, you guys will probably go longer than me.
Eric, go ahead.
Good is, and I'm gonna make a meteorology joke here. Atmosphere. Thank you. Do I get a rim shot, Josh, for that? Yeah. No.
I'll have to put it in post. I don't have it. I don't have it on the mixer anymore.
He's here all week, folks.
No, the atmosphere, the mood, the music, the like you say, the cinematography. I just really like the atmosphere of this movie, and I know that it's a little slower. And I agree. You could have added some deaths, added some kills, maybe brought a little more action into this. But I love the atmosphere so much, and so that's my good. Let's say the bad is what I just said. Add a few more kills, just to kind of give us a little more to carry us through. And ugly is just one little production problem, effect problem, when Mrs. Mrs. Old Lady. Kobritz
Kobritz.
opens the door. There's a moment where the fog reveals the you can see through the fog and you can see the set behind the fog.
Wow, that's getting really particular. I didn't even.
Yeah,
see that.
yeah. It's just you can see like a wall like behind it. You know, it's clearly not outside. That's my ugly. Very, very small.
All right, my good is I love the way the ghosts look in this. I think they're very creepy. I think the close up of the face with the maggots and stuff all over it is really good. I don't mind, even though it's old 80s makeup and you can kind of see the cracks in it. I think they're very effective. HD does not do a whole lot of good for it nowadays, but on VHS I could see this like really creeping me out as a kid.
Definitely.
I like the fog. I like the fog effects. I like the way they use it in this. I like how it's when it's reversed and going away. I think all of that is very cool, and I think a lot of that might be due to the other good thing about this movie. And I'm going to say Dean Cundy. I mean, Dean Cundy makes this movie for me. I don't know. I mean, obviously this is a John Carpenter film, but I think part of getting a John Carpenter film is you're also getting a Dean Cundy DOP. I mean, I just love the way this movie looks in general. The bad for me is I don't think Janet Leigh is good in this at all. I think she's kind of a pointless character.
Woo!
And
Dude,
that.
Well, one
Go ahead, Jason.
Dude, yeah, there's one part where I think she talks continuously for 2 minutes straight. Like there's not a period or nothing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
It's
character.
like, well,
she's
but,
this,
oh.
you know, very.
I don't think she
involved.
was utilized very well, being that it's Janet Leigh. She should have been utilized better. So.
They should have killed her in a shower. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe they should have killed her though. I mean, we talk about wanting
Right,
some
I
more
mean-
kills in here. They could have killed her. They could have killed Sandy.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I don't like seeing Nancy Loomis die in Halloween, and I would have hated to see her die in this, like those were two prime candidates of some more of a body count we could have got from this movie.
Yep.
I hate how many times they say Antonio Bay in this movie. It really bothers me.
Where was this movie?
You get that from being put in a radio station with someone who's announcing it all the time, and then you've got the town anniversary going on, so you're hearing the name of this town so much throughout the movie that it really starts to grate on me. But what I think this movie really suffers from is it is his movie right after Halloween, and you can kind of see he's still in that area of he had something special with Halloween and maybe tried to carry it over to this and it didn't work as well. There's particular parts of the score that sound a lot like Halloween, and that kind of bothers me.
Yep.
It's just, it's hard to distinctly tell the difference between the two in some parts, and that I don't think works all that great for me. But I'll still listen to it. I still think it's a good musical piece, but it's very similar to Halloween. And I think one reason we probably don't like this movie as much is because we probably all saw it later in life. I think if we kind of watched Halloween and then watched The Fog and had the same viewings, like the same amount of viewings as Halloween and The Fog, like we would probably love these in the same kind of juncture. Like, obviously Halloween is a better movie. I'm not saying that this is a better movie or even the same level of movie as Halloween, but I think if we saw it as kids, we would probably hold it in a little higher regard, because if you really like think about it like this, if you had never seen Halloween and you watched it right now, you would think it's boring. I guarantee you would think it was boring.
Yeah. I mean, we're also comparing it against his other films that we cherish. So, you know, like when you're comparing a director's films against his own movies, you know, it's a little unfair, you know, in the sense of you're comparing against some of his masterpieces that are just so great. But I really enjoy it. It, you know, it's got that Carpenter feel, of course. And, you know, particularly these older, you know, earlier films from him. And I just love the vibe, and I like it more every time I see it. So, yeah, it was fun to revisit it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the movie by any means, and it's definitely, I would say it's right in the middle of the John Carpenter movies for me, but I really haven't made a list per se.
Yeah,
but
I haven't either, but it's probably somewhere in the middle. Certainly, I can think of 4 or 5 right now that are better than it. But
yeah, absolutely.
off the top of my head,
I mean, I think it's probably in the bottom quarter of my list. So, but it's just
Well, there's not many to be had, but let's take a top kill.
Top kills.
Sorry, I get a little carried away. I love our top kills intro there. It's cool stuff.
My favorite kill in this whole movie is the boat attack.
Yep.
And it's I guess the captain of the boat when they're actually out on the deck and they're seeing everything. The sword coming through his torso.
That is also mine. I'll spoil it. That's mine as well.
That shot is amazing, and I rewound it probably 10 times trying to figure out how they did that because I can't figure out how they did it, man. Like it looks really freaking good, and it looks like they stabbed that dude to the chest.
And like we said earlier, that's to me the if you want to call it scariest part of the film. That is the most atmospheric. The score is hitting perfectly right there for me, and being on the deck of the ship, being outside in the fog. You know, a lot of people are getting killed in doorways and things like that in this movie, but they're outside, they're in the fog, and you feel very exposed and kind of scared there. And then that stab.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish we would have got more stuff like on boats and out in the water.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have seen more of the ghost ship. Like that ship looks great when you see it in that scene.
Yeah, there's some missed opportunities here for sure.
Yeah. Jason, do you got one?
My top kill would just be Father Malone.
Yep.
I mean, you think that the movie's over, it's all good, and he's just muttering like that, and that was out of nowhere. You get that, off with his head.
This is when the villain comes back for one last scare.
Yep.
But and I would do agree about the boat thing because I like the one where I think he sticks the hook into the guy's neck. You know, like, that's pretty gruesome too. I like that. But yeah, the boat scene, I agree with you, but I would say other than that I just like the quick death of Father Malone because he deserved it. His family is to blame for all this.
He deserved it. His grandpa did something. He deserves it.
Yes.
I don't know how fair that is, but.
And he's drinking all the time. He never paid Ben.
That's true. He didn't pay Ben.
Off with his head.
You got a point.
Yeah.
You got a very good
He never
point.
paid the director.
That's what happens. You don't pay the director, you get killed on screen.
There you go. Exactly.
That's going to do it for our discussion about John Carpenter's The Fog. We'll be back again with another horror section for you when we decide what movie it's going to be. We really are just kind of shooting from the hip with these. But you guys got anything else before we close it out for the night?
No, happy to watch another Carpenter film with you guys, and I'll be back when I can for these things for sure.
Yeah, we like having Eric here talking about horror movies. It's fun.
It's fun. I love it.
Glad we got to do another Carpenter film. I mean, of course, nothing will ever beat Halloween. All of his other movies are definitely below him. But yeah, this was a cool movie to revisit. Never watched it a lot, so still kind of feel the same way about it. But
well, we will get to
somebody that
more.
I know that Eric loves it, so
we will get to some of my more favorite Carpenter films as
definitely more John Carpenter films to come from the VHS Files.
They're fun to talk about too. I don't know what it is about.
You'll see a couple more in the horror section. You'll see a couple more as the movie of the week as we go on. You may even see one in like a little romance area if we start talking Starman. So,
Starman,
but yeah, there's no bones about it. We love John Carpenter here, and we'll talk about him whenever we get the opportunity. So until the next time, be kind, rewind. We'll see you on the next horror section.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Antonio Bay.
It's over.
Over, get the fuck out!
You've been listening to the VHS Files presents The Horror Section. We drop new episodes every Friday, so make sure you're subscribed and leave us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. Interact with us on all social media platforms at VHS Files Podcast. Email us your questions, comments, and movie suggestions at vhsfilespodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back.
Michael Bay's Mexican cousin, Antonio.